And we're back. I'm your host, and we're here in beautiful downtown Blue Ridge, Georgia, small town America. Some of the noises, live show in the background is what we call America starting up in the morning. You'll hear some trucks. I'm sorry to tell you this, but Budweiser's going to deliver in just a minute. They always do right on time, okay? So we're going to hear the Budweiser truck and a train whistle, and we're at Sycamore Crossing in downtown Blue Ridge. And my guest now, Appalachian Judicial Circuit District Attorney Alison Sosebee. I got that right?
You did.
I practiced all day yesterday because I can't get Appalachian Judicial Circuit and then back up and District Attorney. How are you doing?
I am doing good. How are you?
I'm excited to have you here because we're going to talk about something that actually this circuit has been a leader in nationally. We have this circuit, our Superior Court system, along with the District Attorney's Office. This circuit has been involved in this particular subject nationally, a leader, and actually mentoring other circuits that are doing it now. And you just came back from Washington D.C. from the NADCP. What is that?
It is the National Association for Drug Court Professionals Conference. It's an annual conference that we attend every year. The great thing about this conference, you have over 5,000 attendees. And every other year they do it in Washington D.C. and then they alternate in the off years. So the last couple of years, in the off years, it's been in Anaheim. We have gone for the last several years, but they have an array of speakers, and this conference lasts through Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday, and you will literally have hour-and-a-half sessions that you can attend starting at 7:15 in the morning all the way up into the evening. But one of the things that I had said when I got back, one of the most interesting speakers that I saw was they had the deputy drug czar under George W. Bush come in and speak, Scott Burns. And the array of speakers and the panels that they have is so informative. And I think that it really helps us a lot when we come back in terms of evaluating our program, implementing best practices, and really being able to have resources at our disposal here.
Now, when I said this circuit has actually early on, this circuit here has led the way, especially in Georgia and nationally, has been a mentor to many circuits across the country. Tell us a little bit about the alternative courts in this circuit, how long they've been around, the success, and some of the things that you in the Superior Court have done in this area that the rest of the nation is listening to, the success, and watching some of them.
So beginning in approximately 2002, this circuit established the first adult felony drug court. This was one of the first drug courts in the state of Georgia that was established. And the great part about this is because we live in a rural area, treatment options really aren't necessarily readily available to us like they would be in the more urban areas. Right. So the idea and the thought process behind this is if you have someone that is an addict, I'm not talking about a violent offender, I'm not talking about a dealer. If you are talking about someone that is an addict and you take an addict and you constantly recycle them through the criminal justice system, then when you send that person to prison, what you get out of prison is simply a better educated addict, but you're never addressing the root cause of the problem.
I've heard that prison for addicts can be school, but not in the right way.
I would agree with that wholeheartedly.
I mean, I've heard that. I've heard, like, yeah, when they go to prison and they're addicts, not somebody selling so much, but they get an education, but it's not the education you want them to get.
That, well, and I think that when the drug court started here in our circuit, this is something that was really on the fringe. And I think that we led the way here in this area in terms of this push of looking towards rehabilitation for addicts as opposed to this recycling through the criminal justice system. Now, what has happened over the last few years in statewide movements, particularly with Governor Deal, is you have the criminal justice reform bill. And there is really this push statewide for accountability courts, but the benefit that we have, because our programs have been in effect for so long, is we're not in that startup phase, that we've gone through a lot of the trial and error in establishing these programs. And coming out of the drug court, there was a recognition that a lot of the people who end up in drug court may also have co-occurring mental health issues. And the problem that creates, if you end up with someone who has mental health issues in the criminal justice system, I hate to say, there are just not a lot of resources that are necessarily readily available for those individuals. And people who are suffering these mental health issues oftentimes self-medicate.
That's not the Budweiser truck. That's a guy delivering steaks to the restaurant. Okay, steaks and seafood just went by.
But when you have these people that have the mental health issues, a lot of the times they'll self-medicate. And when I say self-medicate, it could be through prescription medication that subsequently they lose the ability to legally obtain, or it could be through illicit substances. But then what happens is you have a co-occurring disorder between mental health issues and substance abuse issues. So coming out of that drug court, in the success that was seen in our adult felony drug court, there was established a mental health court. There's also established a family drug court for individuals who become involved with the Department of Family and Children's Services, or there's deprivation issues that are existing in juvenile court, and the parents can go through the family drug court so they can get rehabilitation, and the children do not necessarily go into the state system, or they do not have to be in the state system to a point that parental rights are terminated, that the parents are given the opportunity to rehabilitate and those families are reunited. You know, most recently, since I became district attorney, the program that was established that I am hugely proud of is the Veterans Court. I always believe that someone who is willing to make that type of sacrifice certainly needs to be given consideration. And oftentimes, as much as I hate to say this, the VA will not necessarily provide resources that may need to be immediately readily available, particularly with these individuals who get involved in the criminal justice system. So all the people that we're talking about that are involved in the drug courts and the mental health courts and the Veterans Court all have a criminal charge. They have all gotten involved in the criminal justice system through a violation of a law, and at that point in time, we look at the case, we evaluate it, and then we decide what we're going to do with it from there.
I have a couple quick questions, bringing it home a little bit nationally, but let's talk about, for those of you at home, the Appalachian Judicial Circuit is made up by, here in Georgia, Pickens County, Gilmer County, and Fannin County. So you have 3 counties. We're hearing more, now we know there's been a problem for several years, but we're hearing more about opiate addiction every day. Tell us a little bit of that, what it's, the tie up in the courts, what are you seeing in law enforcement? Talk a little bit about that if you don't mind.
I would certainly say having to deal with addiction issues and opioids has increased over the last few years. You know, I don't think that there's an individual out there that when they take a medication, or even if they take an illicit substance, that go, ooh, I'm going to aspire to be a drug addict. But unfortunately, that is oftentimes what results. Well, you'll have individuals who may have a car accident or back surgery, or have a legitimate medical purpose for why they have originally obtained these prescription medications. And they will, after the doctor has stopped prescribing those medications, they have become an addict. And at that point, they will go and they will attempt to purchase these substances illegally on the street. So part of what we've been seeing coming out of this opioid addiction is leading into heroin.
Yes, synthetic heroin, right?
The street price, oftentimes, for what you're going to see, and they've been dealing with this in the more urban areas, and it is infiltrating into our area. But with the heroin addictions, for example, on a lot of what we have seen, these people have started off with an opioid addiction. They may have gotten hydrocodone or oxycodone or Roxycontin or whatever it may be. When their supply or their prescriptions are cut off, it is actually cheaper to buy heroin on the street level than it is to go buy these prescription medications.
Wait. I mean, I'm listening to you. So let's look at the we start a good portion is starting with some sort of reason they got the prescription. There's the addiction that comes next. When they can't get the actual pill that they become addicted to, it's cheaper to go instead of looking for it with heroin as a supplement. So that is the that is the transgression. I mean transition. There you go.
There it is.
There you go.
Speaking of transition.
Yeah, transition. Budweiser. I'm sorry. It's like squirrel. I can't help it. I mean, we got it about Sam and I have it about times when Budweiser rolls by. So that way, you know, if you come to Blue Ridge and you get something you want to go to get at a restaurant, there'll be a Bud or something there for you. So, but that is the when I call it natural, because that's what drugs will do to you, the progression of where you end up. So synthetic heroin, are we seeing that in our area?
We are seeing that more and more. We have been really fortunate over the past few years, but the number of cases that we're seeing is causing concern. The bigger problem that underlies this is a lot of the times the heroin is cut with fentanyl. And
right.
Fentanyl is exceedingly dangerous. There have been cases nationally where you've had heroin that is cut with carfentanil. Carfentanil is basically an elephant tranquilizer. And so when this heroin is cut with the fentanyl, and I'm sorry, the people who are cutting it and selling it illicitly, and these drug dealers, are not people who have chemistry degrees. This is not somebody who is sitting there doing a precise measurement. So what you may ultimately end up with is almost pure fentanyl, which is going to result in you in an overdose and potentially death. And we have had that situation multiple times over the last year here in the Appalachian Judicial Circuit, where they are suffering deaths from overdoses as a result of heroin/fentanyl. The other issue is talking about opioids, and particularly prescription medication. And oftentimes, you know, when you go to the pharmacy and you'll see the pills that you get, it'll have what we would call a pharmaceutical imprint. It appears
right.
that it is legitimate, that it came from, you know, a legitimate pharmaceutical maker. Well, what drug dealers have realized is people who want to go buy the hydrocodone or the oxycodone or the roxycontin or whatever it may be, there are now pill presses out there where you can take these illicit substances, press it into something that looks like a legitimate prescription pill. We have had cases recently where someone had anticipated that they were actually buying a prescription substance on the street, which of course was illegal to begin with. Turns out it was almost pure fentanyl. The person who took it then overdosed. So there are a lot of dangers in terms of traveling down that path, in particularly in the situations that we're having to deal with in the court system.
One more question with this segment, because I know you have to get down to the office here. We're in Fannin County, beautiful Fannin County, just down the street from the Fannin County Courthouse here in downtown Blue Ridge. And then I have our all-star political panel coming up after this break. You were at the, tell us again the acronym,
National Association of Drug Court Professionals.
Okay. We hear the noise. We hear the noise politically, left, right, all the noise coming out about the new health care bill and this and that. Was there any talk at this meeting about the new health care bill that may come into place and concerns about funding for alternative courts for treatment? Is that something that's talk, or is that a concern right now?
I will say that's always a concern.
Always.
I mean, we, you know, being able to fund these types of programs, we're very fortunate here that a large portion of our programs are funded through grants that are administered by the CJCC, which is the Criminal Justice Reform Council. But a lot of the times those are federal funds coming in. Now, I can't say at this particular conference that there was a lot of discussion about funding, but I can tell you on an overall basis, that's something we certainly have a concern about. One of the pilot programs our circuit has actually been selected for is there is now 4 participants who are willing to take it. If you are suffering from an opioid addiction, if you are suffering from an alcohol addiction or from a heroin addiction, there is a shot that we have been certified to be able to provide to the participants. It occurs once a month, and basically it is a blocker. So if you were to consume alcohol or an opioid or heroin, you would not get that feeling that you are trying to get. You wouldn't receive that high that you're looking for. And that is a huge benefit to recovering addicts. The great part about it is it's at no cost to our participants through this pilot program. If you were to go out privately and try to obtain this shot, these shots cost $1,000 a piece. So I will say funding, yes, is always a concern. I think that we're tremendously fortunate in our area, though, to have the resources that we have at our disposal.
Two quick questions. Obviously, when an inmate is released, there's no guarantee on if they will return, how soon they will return to the system. So on the alternative courts, two questions. One, do you think they work? Do you really think they work? Are they solid? And do they take any kind of pressure off the superior court system that, you know, does it take anything off that side of just so many cases on there that could be solved or handled in another way?
I cannot tell you that the accountability courts necessarily relieve a caseload, because the amount of time and effort that go into the participants in the accountability courts is tremendous. I know no matter what, I'm going to get the best level of supervision because of the resources that we have available for those accountability courts, because they will go do curfew checks. They are subject to random drug screens 1 time a week up to 6 times a week. I mean, there is such a tremendous level of supervision occurring in our accountability courts. So I can't say it alleviates a caseload. One thing that I can say, I believe wholeheartedly, that our accountability courts do work. We are going to have people that are going to fail. We are going to have people that are going to come back in the system. They have been given the opportunity. I will say, if they fail in the drug court program, though, they are facing a minimum of a 2-year prison sentence if they fail during the time that they're in the drug court program. If they go out of the drug court program and then they become a recidivist after that, then it is certainly taken into consideration on any of those cases that they would come in following that, because we know we have expended a tremendous amount of resources on these individuals. They have been given an opportunity, and clearly at that point in time, what limited resources we have, we're going to dedicate to somebody else who actually wants to get better.
Thank you for the pictures. I enjoyed the pictures. Did the kids enjoy? Is it amazing in the White House? You did a White House tour. Was it?
It was absolutely wonderful. You know, I feel like anytime I go to the national monuments, and particularly, for example, the war memorials, the White House, it is such a humbling experience. You realize the amount of history that surrounds you, the amount of sacrifice that it has taken for us to enjoy everything that we enjoy. When we took the White House tour, for example, and I had the boys with me, they were talking about, well, this is where Thomas Jefferson was, and this is what had occurred. And you know, you're standing there.
Yeah, I hear you.
And you go, wow, you were really standing in a place of history. So one of the great things that we got to do is we did the inside tour of the White House, but we also went to the National Archives and saw the originals of the Constitution and the Declaration of Independence and the Bill of Rights in the Magna Carta from 1297. I mean, how cool is that? And it's humbling, because you realize what we have now, what we fight for now. This struggle has been going on in these protection of rights for centuries. Right. So, yeah, it was neat. I liked it.
I liked it. Well, you enjoyed it. The kids enjoyed it. And the gang's over there ready to talk politics. They just can't wait on the other side of this commercial. I don't know if I can join them, because I don't know if I'm interested in politics today. I'm your host, BKP. We have been here joined by Appalachian Judicial Circuit District Attorney B. Alison Sosebee. I got it right twice. Thank you very much for joining us. Always with great information. We'll be back on the other side of these messages with the All-Star panel. Sam, take us a break.